to the day that I die. Spring has thawed out the long bitter winter. The water is clear and the skies are blue. I'm standing in the middle of the Beaverkill River. Might even catch and release one or two. Well, some folks like horses, cats or a dog. Me, I like fishing with a rod and a fly. Yes, fishing is a favorite pastime of mine. If I couldn't do it, I think I would cry. Well, life is good when I'm wading a river. It gets even better when I cast a fly. If I catch a trout, it don't really matter. It's fun just to be here and give it a try. Trout is rising in the far eddy. I make a false cast, then take my aim. If he takes the fly, I feel so much better. And if he doesn't, I'll feel no shame. Stoneflies and caddis and the riffles are plenty. Mayflies courting on fragrant breeze. And cedar wax wings come down from the heaven, wait for their dinner up in the pine trees. The water is cold and my waders leak, and it's raining now on my favorite stream. I'll bear it all, just fish with a feather, so when I sleep I will have a sweet dream. And life is good when I'm wading a river. It gets even better when I cast a fly. If I catch a trout, it don't really matter. It's fun just to be here and give it a try. Oh, ripples and waves, pools and eddies, trout are rising for the mayfly. And the sun is shining down on the valley. Hope to be a fly fishing till the day that I die. Yes, I hope to be a fly fishing till the day that I die. Hey folks, today's show, I'm Curtis Mayfly. Today's show we're going to feature a stonefly, one of my favorite flies to use on the All Sable River when the big giant stoneflies are hatching, and the Delaware. There's a good hatch on the Delaware at certain times of the year. They're everywhere. They're just everywhere, and it's not a stimulator. It's a stonefly. It's tied purposely to look like a stonefly. So get that right and enjoy today's show. Start your recorders now and get it going, so that, because you don't want to miss this. And again, all my flies are on my website and maybe YouTube if you look up A.B. Kurt on Google, and you can always email me and I can send you links or whatever. This is your show. I just get to do it and kind of have fun doing it, but it's your show. I want you to email me and ask questions and blah blah blah. So enjoy the show, and it's your show, so participate. If you don't email me, I can't email you back, right? But today's show is very special in the fact that we're going to feature a little critter here that I've come to know very fondly over the years, and it's called the giant stonefly. And I don't think I have a stonefly. These look like dragonfly nymphs, and these are caddis cases. I don't have a stonefly on there right now. But the stonefly nymph is fairly large nymph, and when they hatch, the giant stonefly can be, anywhere from 2.5 to 3 inches in length. And I have a photograph here of some giant stoneflies, and that I took the day I was fishing with Butch Bliznick. Oh, come out a little bit. And you can see how big these insects are. They're fairly large. insects, and the trout just love them. See that one right up there by my finger? Very large insects. And the day we were there, we were downstream of Hancock. We were way down there. Buckingham. We were at Buckingham, and the stoneflies were everywhere. They were all over the weeds. They had just had a major hatch where they crawl out onto the shoreline, and in this case they were on the grass drying their wings, and then they would fly off to the trees. The birds were feeding like crazy on them and everything else. Now, the way I learned about this fly was through observation, and this fly came about. Some folks call it a stimulator. It's not a stimulator. A stimulator, the wing is only about 2/3 of the body length. This fly, the wing extends past the bend of the hook, like a stonefly's wings does. Okay, so this is a stonefly imitation. It was not meant to be a stimulator, although it works well as a grasshopper and it works well as a streamer. If it sinks, you just strip it through the water. I don't know what the trout think it is, but they like it. But the way I learned about this fly was I was riding my bicycle along the Rwsea up to Lake Placid, and so I'm riding along, and a grasshopper jumped on my handlebars. Or no, that's how I learned to use it as a... Wrong story, folks. The way I learned about this fly was I was fishing in my favorite hole. That's right. And get the story straight, Kurt. Anyway, I was fishing my favorite hole, and nothing was really going on. And all of a sudden I started seeing these big flies, stoneflies, fluttering all over the place. And they were coming up pretty good. And one had hatched and then flipped upside down in the current, and a huge fish just came up and engulfed it. And I had no flies like this. I've never seen anything like this. So I was all freaked out about it. So that night I went back to my camp at Wilmington Notch. And I sat down to the fly tying bench and I said, I'm going to make a fly to imitate that. And what I did was I actually followed some up into the woods and went up and looked at them on the tree branch and actually got a closer look at what I was trying to tie. So that night I went to the fly bench at my camp with my Coleman lantern, eating a hot dog and sitting there hanging out by the fire, and I tied about 5 of these ugliest flies I ever saw in my life. And basically it's a giant caddis, elk hair caddis is what it is. And it's a nice fly for beginners because it can be ugly. It doesn't have to be pretty. And it's a good fly for beginners because it's a big fly and it uses a lot of the different techniques. Palmering. We're going to palmer a hackle over the abdomen. We're going to put an elk hair wing or a deer hair wing on. And I lost my... Oh, there's my deer hair. I'm going to use deer hair because this is longer. Deer hair tends to fluff out a little more than the elk hair does, but that's all right. We're going to use it anyway. I took this fly out the next day, and it worked like a dream. I caught some very nice large fish on this fly the very next day, the first time ever even using it. And since then, I've had wonderful experiences using this giant stonefly. There's been times where I remember this one spot. There's a waterfalls that on the Rwsea, and there's this one little pool right above the top. And there's a little spill coming into it, and then there's this pool. I put this fly there, and it must have been there about a second, and a fish came out of the water a foot in the air with my fly in its mouth and then landed. And I had this fish, and it was very difficult to land because if he went downstream, he was going to take me over this waterfalls, and you know, it was just a really great experience. And last year I hooked into a fish that biggest fish of my life. I haven't caught a fish that size since I fished on this on the salmon, you know, for salmon. I mean, it was a humongous fish, and I lost him, and that's another story. But anyway, let's get into Kurt's Killer Stonefly, and I'm going to use some elk here or deer here for the wing. I'm using a size size 8 or I think it's a size 8 4 extra long streamer hook. You can use a curved larva type caddis hook if you want. I'm going to use my yellow dubbing here. I'm going to use the same dubbing I used for the light Cahill. I'm going to use grizzly hackle, and I'm going to palmer around the body, and I'm going to use my hair stackers this time. We're going to use our hair stacker, okay, and I'm going to make a tail using some of these fibers here to make a nice pretty tail. So, and I'm using a darker thread than I did last week because I like this dark color for the head of the fly. And I'll be using my wax again to put the dubbing on. And I have 2 size hair stackers, and I don't know which one I'll use yet, but it'll be one of them. So anyway, let's get started. I've placed the hook in the vise, and again, we've got it level. So there, we're ready to start. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by winding my thread on my hook. And again, you're going to pull towards you and then wrap over it. And it's difficult with a long hook like this to wrap because the hook bends, okay? But we're just going to bear with it, and we're going to wrap real fast and get that all the way down the body. So we got a nice base on our fly, and again I'm holding my tag end at a 45-degree angle, and it allows me to wind very fast and not have to even think about it. And it makes a nice tight body on this fly. Oops. Now I'm going to go all the way back to the bend, and that's where we're going to put our tail. I'm going to straighten that hook in there. There we go. And my scissors are over there. Anyway. Uh-oh. Phone call. Phone call. Cut. 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 Okay. Where were we? Okay. I'm going to wind to the bend, cut, and trim. Now, I'm going to make a tail. So I just want a few of these fibers, but I want to line them up. So I'm going to have to take this, and I like to cut it as close to the base as I can so that you don't have a lot of feathers monkeying around, or a lot of fur. And we're just going to put this inside the hackle pliers, or the hair stacker, I mean. And then we're going to tap this on our bench. Okay, we tapped it. Now the fibers should be all lined up nice and neat. We're going to pinch it, and that's our tail. Pull some of those loose fibers out. We're just going to put a little tail on there. Doesn't have to be really big. And I like to leave quite a bit of that on there because it helps bulk up the body. So we're going to pinch and wrap, pinch, wrap, and pull up, and then we're going to, we don't want this to spin too much because it is deer here. So we're going to loosely wrap over that and then wrap it down. And that'll get all packed down when we put our dubbing on, so I'm not too worried about that. But now we're going to wrap over that, back to the bend, and there's our tail. Okay? Now, we have to get a hackle in there to palmer over the body. So I'm going to find a nice long one. Okay? And I'm going to tie this in by the tip because I want the hackle fibers to get longer as it goes towards the front. So we're going to tie it, just take the tip of that hackle and wrap it in there. Nothing fancy. There we go. That's the palmer over the body. Okay? And we can wrap all we want over that. Oops. Watch out for the hook. That hook is sharp and it will break your line. your tying thread. Now I'm going to really wax this up good and get some wax on my fingers so that there we go. Now I'm going to put a lot of dubbing on. This is one of those flies that, you know, the dubbing companies love, because you're going to use a lot of dubbing. And you can tie this with any color you want. You could even use a greener color if you wanted to do use this just as a say like a grasshopper. And we're going to really put a lot of dubbing on here. We're really going to bulk this up because we want it to look like a big, fat, happy stonefly that just hatched. Has a nice yellowish color and is fat and happy and get ready to spawn and lay eggs. So it's a real happy. And some of these are actually orange. You can actually use an orangish color on these. That's where you get into a stimulator, is a more orangish in color, just by nature, you know. But I find this yellow is a good color. I like this color, and many of the golden stoneflies I found, the giant stoneflies, have this color. So this is what I like. This is what I'm sticking to. And again, we're tying Kurt's Killer Stonefly. And we're really going to beef up that body, make a nice body. When you get up to about the shoulder of the hook here, right about in that area, that's where we're going to stop with our dubbing for now. Because what we're going to do is we're going to palmer this hackle over the body. So we're going to just wrap it and make a rib and try to make your segments fairly even. We're just going to wrap that hackle forward and then tie it off. Again, when you're tying off, you got to make sure you're wrapping around that feather. You can't just leave that. Now this feather is pretty good. I could actually keep that on there and use that, but I'm not going to right now. You could actually use that to wrap around the shoulder after we put our hair on there. But what I'm going to do now is actually I'm going to put in another hackle, because this is one we're going to wrap forward, and this one can be tied normally using the base of the feather. So we're going to clip that right there, and this one I'll show you what we're going to do with it later, but right now we're going to clip the two sides off so that we got little nubs to tie on, and I'm just going to tie this on. Okay, I'm not going to wrap it yet. I'm just going to tie that on nice. Okay, now we're going to do our hair trick. So I have my hair here. I'm going to take out a good sized clump, maybe the size of a pencil. Okay, I'm going to pull it right out of there, and then I'm going to nip it as close to the body as I can of the skin. So now I have all this hair, and this is a nice messy fly to tie. So we're going to kind of get some of the loose dubbing out of there. We don't want that on there. See all that little fluffy stuff that's in there? Get rid of that. Now we're going to place this in our hair stacker. We're going to place this in the hair stacker, get the tips in there nice and even. Once you put them in there, you're going to tap that on the table. And that's going to line the fibers up nice and neat. Okay? Pretty good. And again, this is our wing, and we want this to extend past the body. Okay, so our measuring, if it was a stimulator, it'd be right about there, but to make a stonefly we want it to extend over the body, so I'm going to measure that, pull out the shorter ones. I'm going to measure that right there, and that's pretty good. I'm using as much of that as I can going to nip it off kind of even, and then I'm going to loosely wrap and pull up. And then don't let go until you're sure it's on there, because it's deer hair and it will fluff up on you. Okay? See how it goes? But that's our wing. Okay? So we're gonna actually wind a hackle over that, but now we need some more dubbing. What do I do with it? There it is. I need to make the thorax, which is another important part of this insect. They have a fairly beefy head and thorax body where the legs come out of. So we're going to put some more dubbing on there. We're going to pull the wing down and then wrap. And we're going to use a bunch of dubbing here. And it's important that you make a nice head here, because what we're going to be doing is wrapping our other grizzly hackle over this to imitate the legs and the antennae. Okay? Maybe a little more. Well, a little more, a lot more. Make a nice big thorax. There we go, right up to the eye of the hook. Okay? Some of these deer here don't want to stay back. So, now we have our hackle here. I'm going to find my favorite hackle pliers, clamp that on there, and I'm going to wrap 3 or 4 times around the shoulder, right here, where the wing starts. I want to have several wraps, and then I'm going to palmer this again over the thorax. Okay, so you can see the yellow under it, and wrap right up to the eye, and then I'm going to tie off. Okay? So this is a stonefly, not a stimulator. And I don't want anybody writing me saying, well, that's a stimulator. It's not a stimulator. It was tied to imitate a particular insect, which was the stonefly. I actually took insects to copy, so that doesn't make it a stimulator. A stimulator is one that's just a goofy bug to stimulate something. Fish into feeding, perhaps. But this is Kurt's Killer Stonefly. Look at that. Isn't that a beauty? There you have it, folks. That's one of the best flies for summertime when grasshoppers are out, and it's a good time in June when the stoneflies are hatching. They come up on the beaver kill, the Willowweemock, the Delaware. You'll find them. Not so much on the Delaware. Well, yeah, down near Buckingham we saw thousands of them, as you saw in my picture. So here we have the picture of the stonefly, and we have the stoneflies. So get out there and get your fly tying stuff together and tie up some of these. This is a really nice fly to use, and it's easy to see, and it casts well, and I've used it all across New York State, and I've had great luck with it. This is a fly that you may want to take. You might want to take out with you to out west if you go, because they have a big hatch of the stoneflies out there, and the trout just go crazy over them because you'll see stoneflies in the millions. One thing I'm going to add to this, because all I did was a half hitch on there, is I'm going to put a little head cement or Zap-A-Gap on the thread, and that will hold that thread together really well. Okay?
The hills are alive with the sound of music.